I will be kind of trying to figure out our goals for Distal. So I wanted to kind of do this out in the open and just to have something recorded for later, but also to gather feedback and hopefully fill in any gaps that I'm missing here. So on the this is Nesha, by the way, which is the only concept art that I went and had done for this game. It's very expensive. It's prohibitively expensive for me at the moment. But this is what Atlian look like in our game, and it's wicked dope. I can't wait to. I think I'm going to do a little video talking about just the concept art process, because I've had a lot of experience dealing with that sort of thing in the Planetside 2 times. But yeah, the artist Gray Herb did such a cool job. I dig it. Anyway, so when it comes to getting Distal out into the wild, it already is in alpha form. Very much it would be difficult to pull somebody into the game just right, from scratch. We did just release a little bit of a new player section, but it wouldn't be enough for a full game. So I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. The way that I would like to do this is perhaps not now. Rather, I don't want to put dates down now, but I do want to put goals. And I like to think of it as 3 separate buckets: the needs of the game, the needs of the product, and the needs of the community. All of those things need to be in some relative form of balance, or else the whole thing falls over. This is very, very much how I felt about Planetside 2's development as well. It was the needs of the game, the needs of the organization, the needs of the team. Or rather, the needs of the community. The organization was wrapped into the team. But so when we think about the game itself, this is talking about what the game actually needs to feel complete. Right now in the alpha, we go up to level 6 out of 12. Didn't want to push it I didn't want to push it all the way up to 12 until I got a good feel for what people were actually interested in playing. Low level interesting questions in the chat. A low level D&D is where most people tend to play. High level experiences don't get played all that often, and it's for a number of reasons. But so the level cap on our game is lower, just kind of in general, and the curve is more flat too. But I think the goal would be to allow you to have characters that could develop for years even. I'm a fan of really long campaigns, though I've never had one start to finish myself. Just the idea is super appealing to me. So don't think that's necessarily something that needs to be a part of this particular game, but we should be thinking about that in terms of how the game is meant to be structured. That being said, let me start with some just really functional stuff. I keep distracting myself. Okay, real quick. Needs of the game. Anything related to the game's actual content or the development of it. Needs of the product. Anything related to the publishing and delivery of the game as a product, which also includes things like how do you support development? I am unemployed at the moment, so this is a hobby until my money runs out, and then it's back into some other line of work. When it comes to the needs of the community, this is where all of you come in. It's anything related to all of you. This the Discord, and I pasted this from Discord. That's why it says this Discord. Let's see. The development Discord. How to keep folks excited, interested, and satisfied with what we're building. So those are the goals, the things that we'd like to flesh out. That being said, the needs of the game are probably some of the easiest to determine for me, just because a lot of this work is in my head, kind of floating around, and then there's just a bunch of loose stuff that hasn't been fleshed out, but is in some sort of form. So we're gonna go. I guess we can make it a checkbox. That's fine. But I'm gonna say. Let's see. So it's real quick. So level. Levels 1 through 12 completed for all classes. Then actually, if I wanted to do like class balance, this is a little bit too nebulous to be a goal. Not until I get more feedback. There are currently 3 different races, lineages, that aren't yet in the game, but have been kind of loosely in the game in my own personal documentation. So the Fury lineage. The Fury are super cool. The Itetsi and the Lathe. The Itetsi are like technically, like not really undead, but kind of sort of undead-ish, wrapped in gold. Let's see. So these all definitely need to be done, but before, I mean, these aren't even, I think those are stretch goals more than anything else. So I'm actually gonna put that down as such. It's not necessary, but it is something that I would like to see at some point. What is necessary is expanded, or rather finalized lore for all existing lineage. I need enough monsters for gameplay at all levels, which I'm actually going to break it down. No, that's probably fine. Can always expand upon that later. What else? Thanks, Orby. Let's see what else. There's definitely some core concept stuff that I'm still trying to kick around. I'm gonna put this in the needs of the game, but it's kind of needs the product territory as well. But more clearly define the USP for this game. This is like one that I've been thinking about a lot. The other stuff is easy. It's just do work and get to the end goal. But this is conceptually way more difficult. When it comes to the unique selling point of this particular title, I'm thinking about, so full disclosure, normally this is something you think about before you create a game, but because of how this game came into being, that wasn't really what I was going for. It wasn't meant to be something that would market outwardly, like a commercial product, but now it is. So that's why we're here. But the unique selling points, I'm gonna do a little bit of brainstorming on stream later. Curious what AI has to say. Me too. Let's figure it out. Let's see. Okay, this is gonna give me all sorts of nonsense. What does your let's see. The more details, the better. Okay. I'm building a tabletop role-playing game. What are the base elements? Question mark? I think that might be too confusing. What are all of the individual pieces? That doesn't make sense either. What are the base I don't know, for publishing a new, I'll just do that. We'll see what that comes up with. Wow, that's way faster. Oh geez. Oh man. Okay, clearly define the unique there we are. Nailed it. How dare you? Okay. Sorry, it's actually just pasting my stuff in. How dare you? What a cheater. These requirements are essential for development and content of the game. Additionally, thank you. He just copied my homework, absolutely. For publishing and delivering the game as a product, you'll need to address the needs of the product, which may include factors such as production, very unhelpful. To foster a thriving community, focus on engaging the development Discord and, okay, listen. Remember, these are just the base requirement. Okay, all right, AI. Basically, it's just going to repeat all the stuff that I wrote down and said on stream back to me. Oh well. It's probably, the AI is probably really good at certain things. Just not this. Let's see. Okay, so more clearly define the USP for the game. I will explore this on stream. Need rules for, I'm gonna say finalize loot rules. I have this as a work in progress. The supporters chat can actually see that in a preview, but it didn't make it into the Steel and Stone update, or Alpha 2, because it wasn't quite done. I wasn't satisfied with it. It like talks about traps in certain areas, but doesn't actually elaborate on what those traps could be. Let's do room generation tools, and then also, so this game I would really like to see players, I'd really like to see sort of West March's style exploration be a facet of the game, but not under the guise of exploration. I want players to be able to build their own world, using, like, being a hex crawl, but also using landmarks that are provided to you via modules and provided to you via story. So for example, you will know that, I'm gonna make my big dumb face big. So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. I'm really trying to figure out a good way to package this particular product so somebody can walk in and say, like, I know what to do, instead of leaving it up to experienced GMs to figure it out, or also instead of leaving it up to a wealth of additional modules being created by third-party publishers and that sort of thing. I don't have the almost 50 years of experience that Dungeons and Dragons does, nor the legion of writers and artists and that sort of thing. But what we can do is provide tools to the GM to make building a world feel important, or just feel fun at the very least. That's like the baseline that I would shoot for. The way that I would do that for the world in particular is say like, hey, Meridia is a big capital city. Here's a blank hex map. Plop that city down somewhere. Also, there's this town over here, or rather, there's like the Embermantle Mountain Range. That's where all the dwarves originated from before they were pushed up above ground. That goes somewhere on your map. And then when you do a module, it can say like requirements for, let's say that we're doing like a seaside based adventure. It would just say, plop this town down somewhere near near a coastline, or like it needs to be within 1 hex of a coastline, or it needs to be, on a coastline. And then you would know, and the players would know how many hexes it would take to get to that particular location, or if you had like an existing seaside town, you can use that one instead. And as long as we create a really solid framework, then people can build upon that with modules, third-party content, homebrew, whatever, and do so in a way that feels intentional and clearly defined in the world. So on a smaller scale, like room generation stuff, I think would be helpful too, as long as it doesn't get cumbersome, which is a real possibility. I've seen some of how Shadow Dark builds their, I think it was Shadow Dark builds their towns, and it seemed pretty promising. It also seemed like slightly too many tables, more than I was going for. But we'll see. So I'll say world generation tools as well. Takeno says simple world building with well-defined events and boundaries can leave detailing to each table. It's a very good way to go about it. Yeah, I definitely want to find the balance. I've seen plenty of content that it's just inundated with tables, and while it's a helpful tool, I feel like it can also be too much. I've also seen a lot of tables that are either too restrictive or too vague. Like I've seen prompt-based generation in the past, and it leaves so much up to the imagination of the GM, to where it's, unless you're a very specific type of GM, it's kind of not super helpful. I think that Bastion Land, despite being a really cool looking game and very smartly themed, it has those like really loose one-word prompt generation based tables, and you just gotta like think all that stuff up. At least I was watching a development stream. I don't know much about the game itself, but that's what it looked like to me. And the person who was using the tables, who was also the developer of the game, was going through it, and it made sense, and it was cool that he was doing that, but I just don't think that works for everybody. So that's kind of where I'm sitting for the actual presentation of the world. Finalize loot rules. Finalize. Well, make traps. Go. That works. What else? New. Better. I'll say finalize. Finalize. New GM. Onboarding rules. I don't go far enough with some of this stuff, but it shouldn't be too bad. Knock that out. Let's see what else. More spells. It's not a great goal. Need to figure out how many spells should exist in the game, but there's definitely an imbalance right now where can you teabag in this game? Yes. You have to roll a d20 for it, though. Let's see. Spells. So there's an imbalance between sources right now, where celestial spells, there's like not too many of them. And then there's like a whole bunch of primordial spells and a whole bunch of weave-based spells. So that needs to get fleshed out. And the way that spells work in this game is that there's 5 levels of spells. You have your level 0, your level 1, your level 2, your level 3, your level 4. And they're all tiered in such a way that the way that spells are used is kind of different. So level 0 spells are basically like your cantrips. You can use them, cast them however much you want. The level 1 spells, this is where the majority of your combat spells live. They only take up 1 spell slot, which it could be called mana. It's not a slot in the way that D&D uses the term, since they have very specific slots for very specific spells. I guess it would be more like spell points, but we call them spell slots in the game. These level 1 spells are basically like your combat spells, and these are kind of sort of a mix between combat spells, and there's some utility stuff in here too, but it's more like, let's say combat spells also, just to get the point across. And then the tier 3 spells are, they always work. You always get some sort of positive benefit. You can't fail. They're kind of like awe inspiring. And then you have your level 4 spells, which are like, I break the world. But it's done in such a way that these spells are usually they take a long time to cast, and usually you have to keep channeling them. So these are things like, I'm creating an earthquake, basically. Like I'm sitting there and it's getting stronger and it's breaking things down. These are the spells that the big bads of the game would also use, and you'd need to stop them. That's not to say that they would that doesn't make them great for just normal combat encounters necessarily, because they do take a lot of commitment. They're not like a flick of the wrist. That's what your combat spells are for. And then I think this gets kind of more into, I guess, more reliable combat spells. And there's some not really summons in here. I don't know. I explain it more eloquently in the actual documentation. Let's see what else. I think I need to, this is more of a note for me. I need to check on level progression, balance, potentially class balance. There's some broad principles that I'm using for the power level of each class at certain levels. They're not all 100% balanced. They're also not intended to be, because the progression is kind of different depending on what you're doing. But I think there's some stuff out of whack and some stuff that I just flatly want to change. I guess that doesn't need to be here. It's way too loose. Okay, so those are needs of the game. Actually, and then I need key lore. This actually kind of goes under the USB sort of situation. And then what do I need? I mean, the document's already more than 120 pages. And that's without... Hey, Morgan. That's without the pictures. So there's a lot going on. I do need more items, kind of just in general. Part of it's because there's just not enough there to spend your money on, and then part of it is because it's kind of it's just not interesting enough. Like, there's some fundamentals, but it doesn't really, it's not great. Hey, Delta. All right, what else do we need to do? Okay, if anybody can think of just needs in the game stuff, please feel free to chime in. I'm really excited to put these in. Oh, right. And then there's also the Deadeye class. There you go. There's also the Oracle class. And these are stretch goals. They don't need to be in the game, but they exist in my documentation. I just didn't feel like they would be a fit so early on. Hey, Nansen. Oracle. What is the Oracle? They wielders of fate. And then what else is there? There's a dervish class, which is whirling blades of whirling animated dancing blades of death. There's the Justicar, hasn't made it in yet. Paladin, but more Judge Dredd. Let's see what else. I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, and then there's the Dryad, which is a class, not a race. Bound to the Grove. And Dryads they're kind of sad because they bargained for their power, or they were pushed into a bargain. But they, at the end of their life, whenever that is, they are going to become a thrall, basically. Become a Dryad. Because they are indebted to an entity, and they will lose all memory of who they were, and that's it. It's kind of a sucky fate, but in exchange you get the power to save your friends, and like tend to the just the primordial world. They have some limitations, like they can't touch metal, or else their body begins to become more tree-like. Their skin turns to bark, and their body gets really rigid, and they slow down and just stop, and then they're just paralyzed. So I can imagine some really nasty ways to like trap Dryads. But the Ember Gut has some similar threads too, because they've bargained for their power with an entity from the plane of fire, and they're like branded, and they can't if they ever use non-fire spells, their willpower just plummets, which is actually a mechanic that they use to their benefit. And the Dryad has some stuff that they use to their benefit too, like they can restrain themselves and turn them into that hardened tree just to make it so they're more difficult to take damage. Really flammable though. Anyway, let's see. So that's pretty good for stretch goals. Okay, so that needs the product. What does it take to keep us going? It's going to be at most a few months that I have to work on this project, then I'm done. Done as in I will no longer be able to afford working on it. So with that being said, the timeline gets really sketchy. Some ways to help prop that up are, say, Patreon is something that I've been thinking about. Maybe bring it back online, question mark. I don't know. That's if there's enough that the community is willing to get behind it, if there's enough interest in the product. Oh. Turn this into a checkbox. A checkbox. Okay. Let's see. And so I need to, how many and which scenes for concept art? I could just say like concept art for the book. How many pieces? What kinds of pieces? Reese's pieces. And that would be like, got to be able to afford it, which is probably like Kickstarter territory. So, framing some of the topics you've made already and making them available stand alone on public spaces. It's an interesting way to gather attention as well. Small format background module. Yeah, you know, I was thinking specifically about that. I really like the way that we do the character backgrounds and the onboarding of the, like, I like contacts. I like, I don't think contacts are, I don't know how other people are going to receive it though, just because they don't give you like a real tangible benefit. But I have exceptions for that. And then I like the onboarding for building an organization. Those are, I was thinking like, yeah, I could totally turn them into 5e supplements and then, you know, maybe it would garner some attention. It's a little bit of a catch. Like if that's where I would have started, just making 5e stuff, it would certainly be more lucrative. But it's also, I love Dungeons and Dragons. And also, the most exciting thing for me is not having to design with all the baggage that comes with Dungeons and Dragons. So, but yeah, at least those I think would work pretty well. And you can certainly say like at the top, you know, this is adapted from Distal, and then try to garner your recognition that way, which I think is what you're getting at. Yeah, you know, actually there was a really good video by the folks from, what is their name? They're the ones who do Dragonbane. It's Free Something Publishing. And they made it so easy to give you a feel for how you create a character and why certain things are important, that I would love to emulate that and just, you know, make something like that for this particular game. I do think that there's some rules in here that need to be packaged a little bit better so that it's easier to move through. I mean, the character creation process isn't that bad, but there's like a little bit of weirdness when it comes to picking weapons and then buying items, and that definitely needs to get streamlined. But I would love to do just more supplemental content like that in a really official capacity. What I've been struggling with creatively is, it was so much easier to make videos when I didn't have to use my face or have to use, you know, cut. Like I spent like 8 hours cutting the character creation video, or the background one. It was a long time. So I think that there's better ways to handle that. I was also still trying to get like some of this set up so that I would have like I have a key light now, which is obnoxious, but I needed something for my camera, which is also obnoxious. I don't like the mic setup. Like there's so much here that needs to be tweaked and improved, but one step at a time. So needs of the product, Kickstarter. Here's a question that I have for all of you. What sorts of rewards would you be interested in? There's stuff like miniatures people do a lot. I haven't explored how to get that sort of thing done, but hopefully that would be on the horizon. But something that I could do, and I'm gonna do this regardless because I'm just gonna put it in the shop on like the spring store or something like that. Is large mousepad DM screens. I don't have a better word for them. Playmats? This sort of stuff, actually. I'm just gonna do say useful sellables for Distal. So I saw a game that had, it was using like a desk or like a really long mouse pad, and it had spots for like all the cards that would go on this particular game. And I was really excited about that. It's like, yeah, wouldn't it be awesome if you just had one of those? It doesn't have to be for your character. It could be for like, here's the rules. It's all the conditions are listed out. You know, all the quick reference stuff basically would be all listed out. You could also have some stuff over on the side for like a character or something, but I don't know how you would really manage that. I think there's better ways to manage it. But if there was a bunch of really helpful pieces of information that was just on this mouse pad that you can roll up and, you know, roll out, put a drink on, roll dice on, that seems like it'd be super fun. I want to make one just for myself. And then there's like, so Vulcan laser grape. Nope, that's not it. I linked this in Discord earlier. I can't remember what they're called now, but they create wooden combat trackers with magnetic pieces. This is more from my memory now, where like they're modular and you can stick them on a larger like a larger backing. And there's like a little cog that you can rotate for your health, and there's some stuff for like spell slots, and there's like magnetic ball bearings that you kind of just like move down and then it rolls into the next magnetic little holder, and it lets you track stuff. It's super easy. I would love to work with them to get something custom done for this particular game. That'd be wicked sick. But yeah, so rewards. There's always miniatures. Put that down there. Special edition covers. I think that we can potentially do more monsters book. It's totally separate monster book. I don't know that we actually need I mean, there might be a need for a DM book, but if there is, like, okay, here, I'm gonna put this up here. This is the More Monsters book. More Monsters book. It's a book, and it takes a lot of work and concept art. So stretch goal. Mugs are good. I like that one. Yeah. Mugs. Wicked dope. Mugs. I have a podcast that I've been doing, and I haven't told, like I've told my inner circle about it. Not even that, like just like a handful of people in real life. But it's a podcast about just like being creative and trying to help people get unstuck and stay that way. Anyway, I really want to put the logo on a mug. That's where I was going with this. I really want to put a logo on the mug. Let's see. Doot. So, let's see. DM guide book, and I'm gonna put that as like that's up here too. Gym guidebook is also a book and takes a lot of work. Possibly also a lot of concept art. Alright, I cracked myself up. Anyway. Ideally, we wouldn't have to delve into multi-book territory so early when it's just me, you know, writing stuff, and I don't got a team or nothing, so. Let's see. You know, yeah, miniatures, like dice, people do. So spell cards. Orby was talking about this earlier. Or just like, you know, ability cards, loot cards and such. Yeah, we got anything else? If you come up with anything, let me know. So, to go back just a wee bit, possibly Patreon. But if we were to go to Patreon, what does that mean? Benefits for members. What kind of benefits? It would be Discord access. I say access, but currently there's a subscriber level on Discord for the people who feel like supporting. And ideally, this is something that you'd get the same sort of access, and then we can kind of divest ourselves from using Discord explicitly. What else? Reach arounds for everyone. Let's see. So if people had an interest, you could do private Q&A. I shouldn't say private. Sounds weird. Members only Q&A. And then there's potential one-on. Nope, not one-on-one. Starts to get weird again. Potential. Let's say guided play testing, which I feel like should be a thing anyway, so I don't know. Most interested in the concept art. Would love a poster, especially if it's signed. Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if so yeah, I guess it would depend on what the key art or the book art ended up being. If we can commission something that really just nails the feel and looks awesome, I would be down to sign every single one. But think it'd be cooler if the artist did it. Like that'd be, write that stuff in gold. That'd be wicked sick. I'll put that under. Let's just put it under here. Posters. Concept art. Posters. Signed, of course. Okay, so we'll move on for this, or from this, for the time being. Okay, needs of the community. So anything related to the development Discord, how to keep folks excited, interested, satisfied with what we're building. You know what, I'll move the Patreon stuff down here because it seems a little bit better for it. But I don't think it's really, I don't know. I guess it depends on what you all like. It's always nice to have conversation. Like real, candid conversation about building stuff. I love creating things. And I think the most difficult I think that the most difficult part of that particular process is conflicts of opinion can sometimes create bad blood, and that's something that it frightens me a little bit. Ultimately, it comes back to like the goals for the game, and I'm still in the process of really hammering out exactly what those need to be, or what I would like them to be. I have a lot of ideas, but this is alpha. I've tried so many different directions. I've been playtesting this stuff for months at this point. And for the most part, it's good. But there's also, it's only good because I think the people who are playing it know how to play, Dungeons and Dragons. So like it all makes sense for them. And at this point, it can go anywhere. But there's some specific aspects that I really want to hold on to. And a lot of the ways that other TTRPGs handle things is not necessarily something that aligns with just the stuff that, I don't know, goals for the game, but things that make me happy to create for them. I want to make a game that I want to play. Let's see what else. Needs of the community. So I would like to do weekly live streams. So people can ask questions. I would like to experiment with the idea of doing actual play content or something similar. Because I feel like it's easier to connect to the game that exists when you see an actual person playing it. Because the little things like, is this how I do this? If you have a GM there, you can say like, no, it's actually, you do this and then you add this other thing. And that, at least to me, is really helpful. I really enjoyed watching the first episode of Candela Obscura, and like the second episode, I guess, because it told me what the game was supposed to be. And I haven't played the quick start guide, but I have seen also just like some of the character creation process, and just having people walk through that was, as somebody who likes to design things, was kind of illuminating, because you can see when they would run into a question, you can see them collaborating and talking about like, what should my character be in this regard, or like what, role am I filling compared to what you're filling. And doing that sort of thing is something that I'm super interested in. Probably more than actual play content itself. More like stuff that's not structured to go through an adventure necessarily, but stuff that is helpful to inform and connect the viewer to the actual design of the game. But that's a me thing. Actual play content would be huge. Yeah, Henry. Maybe it would be, I don't have people in real life that I feel comfortable having on camera all the time. Also, they're busy, but yeah, that's something that we would have to figure out. Could always do stuff with the community, but that scares the crap out of me too. They do. Cool. Yeah, glad to hear it. Oh, I haven't even had the screen up. I've just been talking with my dumb face. Sorry. Typed all this stuff. And it was just my dumb face the whole time. I'm a professional. Yeah, hard to set up play content. So so today actually I started looking into Alchemy Tabletop or Alchemy RPG, and so I can't stand Roll20, cannot stand it, but Alchemy RPG seems like it's right up my alley, and it's very immersive, and I think it'd be super fun. It seems like there's a pretty decent learning curve and a lot of setup that you'd have to do, but that's something that I really want to, I feel like experimenting with that. Okay, let's move on. So needs of the community. Tell me what you need. What is it that you desire? How can I support you supporting me? Sweet Caroline, boop, boop, boo. Yeah, I feel like I hit a wall when it comes to this particular topic. I just don't know what to help that also doesn't feel overly uncomfortable or take up a whole bunch of my time, because it's, doing work, it can sometimes be difficult to find the time to do extracurricular stuff. Semi-frequent updates, timelines, excitement. As a DM, I think I mentioned just better tools and a TTRPG. Yeah, for sure. We need the scary community games. Yeah, man. I don't know how to vet everyone. Like I wouldn't want to do it on stream, because you just have one bad egg who just like walks in or like makes everybody uncomfortable. Then I've had enough experiences with D&D in real life to where the whole party didn't quite gel. Sometimes it's been me. Like I played games and their sense of humor was just like totally different than mine, or I'd just be way too shy because it's very difficult for me to commit when I don't know the people really well. And I'm a very different person when I'm closed off. Is the idea to develop this to be played mainly along through an application or more so pen and paper? Oh, is there an application already in the works? Already, if so, I would say that as a baseline, you should expect pen and paper. However, getting a tool that helps facilitate, like a D&D Beyond style thing, I would say isn't out of the question, and in fact should be a goal. Yeah, I'll write it down. Let's make it specific. Character builder tool. There we go. I agree, Henry. Let's see, what else? Okay. Well, this is, I think, about where I was like looking to end up in a first draft, is just listing a bunch of stuff that I need to keep in my head, and ideally be able to focus on and like check things off. But I would also say that there's so much that is missing that if anybody has an idea, that kind of falls into one of these three buckets. So needs of the game, needs of the product, and needs of the community, please let me know. I do want to, however, try to do a little bit of this with all of you. So I don't, it's mostly just going to be me talking to myself, I'm sure. But a problem that I feel like I run into is it is very difficult to say, for me to say, why somebody should play this over something else. Other games they're way more specialized, where they have a really specific niche, or are built on a specific, set of lore. For example, you want to play the One Ring RPG. It's because you really like the feeling and the world of Tolkien's, Lord of the Rings. If you want to be a robot that's going to die a horrible death, I think you play Morkborg. Is that it? I think so. If you want to play whatever century European, what century is it? I can't remember. I had this written down at some point, but like Vaesen is a particular game where it has a really specific theme too, or Call of Cthulhu, or whatever else. I don't have that. I was very much shooting for what I call generic fantasy, because that's what I liked and what I wanted to play, but just have my ideas instead. But when it came to narrowing down the unique selling point, all I have really are mechanics. I really like a lot of the ways that I handle the mechanics in this game. However, mechanics don't lead with the heart, and it is very difficult to... My lips are wicked chapped, I'm sorry. I get to keep licking nonstop. I've been doing this in a lot of videos too, and I've been noticing it. I need to find a way around it. Drinking this all the time does not help. Anyway. So I don't have a particular niche, and at the same time I don't want to lose the generic fantasy either. So if I need to find a way to connect the player, emotionally to this game. I think that the strongest, some of the strongest points in this game take place right at the start. I really like the way that I handle backgrounds. I really like the way that I handle getting the players to work together, and I really like a lot of the other more like nuanced weapon-based mechanics, because I'm a nerd for that sort of thing. But as a whole, that's difficult to convey. In terms of needs of the community, I would love to see a more dedicated section of the site to learn more about the game from outside of the Discord. Oh, okay. It's nice to be able to send a friend that. Oh. Dedicated site, see what it's about, access documents, link to tools, maybe even see updates and recent changes to the project as necessary. Okay, yeah, dig it. So right now I'm currently using Linktree, which is just super basic. I feel like I'm kind of not using it for its intended purpose. I was looking for like a really quick one-page website that I could just send people to and have them download things right there, which you can. But it doesn't let me do, some of what you're saying, like have, blog posts or talk about the development. I need an actual website for that. So that's a really good one. I'll say proper website for Distal. I'm actually going to move that up to the top because that's like, yeah, that's super, super important. Proper website for Distal. Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do it in. I dealt with Squarespace in the past, not super impressed. Dealt with, it's fine. Dealt with Wix and WordPress. And, I've done plenty of that in the past. But I don't know. Maybe it's just that I don't feel like spending all the time to make a website. I think that's what it comes down to, if I'm being honest with myself. But I need to do it. It's important. I'll get it done. Yeah, Henry, I used to do a lot of WordPress. And there was a very, very short period in my life where I was doing it professionally. Very, very, very short period. Very, very short. Let's see. So Orby says, kind of nailing that identity is very important now, somewhat in the beginning. Yeah, for sure. And that's something that I've been exploring a lot. Just which elements do I want to push and pull to get me closer to what the game could be. And is it going to be something that I'm happy with? That's actually the binding the players together. That's what came out of that, was just some of that discussion with myself, talking to myself, because it was really nebulous to start. It was just like, yeah, no, you it's a sandbox, do whatever you want. You make characters, and then you'll figure out how to meet up, and everything will be fine. But I feel like we could do better than that. So that's where the building organizations thing comes in. I would love to see people play with that and see what sorts of influence it has on their campaign as a whole. See, I've been doing web development recently in college, so I have mindset for it right now. Word. Having the main front page selling point, the different. Yeah, for sure. And I need to find a way to package it too. It's a lot of it is. Yeah, I don't know. It's just difficult working through it. But yeah, that's top of mind for me right now. I'll say, what else? What do we got? I said I was gonna talk about the USB, and then I didn't really do much of that. I'm gonna do it right here. So the things that I think are most strong about the game so far, if we were to open up the document, there's a whole list of important mechanics, but it's only important because it's different from 5e. And or rather, some of those are only important because they're different from 5e, and it's to illustrate why it's different. Plenty of other games do similar things to what I'm doing here, but not I haven't seen a lot of these three. So character, background creation. To me, this is very strong. And then, like we mentioned, the building and organization. To me, this is also really strong. What is less strong are... I would say your foundation. I'm just going to put a Can I do that? Okay. Minus... Oh, no, jeez. All right, well, never mind then. Yeah, so if we could find a way to like package those two at the very least. Some other mechanics that I don't think are super fun, but are... Okay, so one of the other kind of core concepts is skill-based... Well, I guess it's not even... It's like a hybrid skill-based D20 system. Some things are skills that you level up independently, and then some are attributes or abilities in 5e. And that's not super strong either. I would say that death is... let's see. Death is real. It's a real thing that exists. Actually, so maybe more to the point is that no resurrections. I don't know. Yeah, like there's no spells that bring somebody back, back to life in this game, intentionally, because that is one of the things that I dislike most about 5e, is that you shouldn't heal people until they go down, so that you can pick them back up. Dumb. There's plenty of ways to homebrew solutions for that, but I think it feels better if it's an actual part of the game, because it helps set the tone. It says, hey, take care of each other, or else you're going to inch closer to death. And there's only so many things that you can do about that. A mechanic that exists within this particular game is called death marks. Death marks are, if you drop to 0 health, you begin dying. It's fairly easy to pick somebody back up early on, because you only need to heal them within the same round. As many health as they have death marks. So you go down once, you just need to get 1 health. Then you kind of sort of pop back up. You're always down for a round, regardless though. If you slip away a second time, you need to be healed for 2 health. But you are down 2 rounds. Minus your fortitude. You're always at least down for 1 round. And as you level, the maximum of your death marks increases, but the death marks that you've gained don't go away. So you will, over a long campaign, have to make decisions on how much do I care about losing my character? Do I need more time? There are some specialties that exist within the game that will be like, yeah, actually, if you've died, you get this one specialty. It's called Death Pact. The more you die, or the more death marks you have, the more maximum health that you get. And then it also bumps up like the base maximum death marks that you can have. And death can become an addiction, I feel like. The Ferryman as a class is very good at this, because it receives energy, spellcasting juice, when somebody within 30 feet dies. And Ferryman shift W, that's funny. They can feel the energy, somebody's life force, slip away. Imagine if you were, so there's two major situations that I kind of repeatedly imagine in my head. If you're walking through a battlefield and you're like on the front lines, combat, your allies, your enemies dying, and you're just blasting. So then I started blasting, because you gain your spell slots back, and you can just like dish it back out. And then on top of that, when somebody slips away, like you can use a reaction and make their soul lash out at somebody else, which is super fun. But they don't have spell slots aside from, or charged spell slots. When they go to sleep, they wake back up. They only have an amount charged equal to their death marks. So the more that they die, the stronger they become too. And there's this fun interplay between needing to die, but not too much. And I have a character, rather a player in my campaign, who has a character, and that character, she grew up in a different plane. It was in Isidre. I don't know how you say it. I don't make the rules. And a plague slowly but surely wiped out their village. And their character was like a healer, somebody who would use medicine, take care of people, like a doctor. But there was no cure for this plague. And it slowly ravaged the entirety of the village until finally it fell upon her and she died. Problem is that she didn't stay dead. Every ferryman goes to the Ebon Deep, but somehow has come back. The Ebon Deep is like a plane, it's a massive, dark ocean. And fun fact, it actually connects to different parts in other planes, but you have to know exactly where and be able to travel through it. But somehow, like all ferrymen, she was kicked back out into the Distal. So she has been dead, kind of, once. Comes back, has to figure out how to come to terms with seeing everybody that she knew die. And now she's on a plane in the Distal that's not even hers. So she has to learn everything again. Eventually she settles on the concept of it's not death I'm trying to prevent. It's to help people move on. So she's kind of sort of like not a grief counselor, but like presides over people's as they die, to help make sure that they can make it across the Ebon Deep. And that's why ferrymen exist at all, or rather why their services are desired, because it's ever since there was some like planar disruption stuff, it's just been difficult to know if your family member is going to the right place. But she goes to where there's trouble, and she feels rejuvenated, satiated, energized by those that die around her. So when it comes to healing your allies, saving that person who is very likely at the end of their life, why risk your own? Sometimes it's just easier to let them slip away. And it feels good. That's a weird sort of paradigm that I feel that the ferryman can kind of walk across, this weird tightrope between life and death. Anywho, what are we talking about? Okay, so these are fairly strong-ish concepts. I'll say that the strongest. Meh. Oh, why? This notion is kind of kind of not, it's not playing nice. Excuse me. Bleh. Okay. Yeah, the ferrymen are fun. I really like their concept behind magic, just because like they're unreliable casters, basically. If you're in a fight and there's only like a handful of mobs, you have to wait for one to go down before you can cast another spell. so because of that, they're kind of like, they're pretty good. It's just with normal combat, they don't rely on spells quite as much as the true casters. Thanks, Nansen. Yeah, they really like that, their character. Let's see. Yeah, so this is kind of where I'm at as far as the USP. And so what's the potential? What things could we push further and pull back on? I like the idea, and this isn't done yet, but I like the idea of the player builds the world. Or I'd say like the GM. I wonder if GM's going to stay, or if we're going to call them something like MCDM calls them directors. Lord of the Rings calls them storytellers. It doesn't need to be game master, but everybody else understands it. Got to carry some critters and bags on your belt for ammo for your spells. Man, that sounds awful. I pray that my players never think about that. Never consider it. Man, yeah, this one feels bad. Let's see. The GM builds the world. Oh, that sounds obvious. Let's say the player builds the world. So I think that's a concept that we can potentially explore. It'd be GM, not actually player, but this is how I want to think of it. So there it shall be. What else? Yeah, it seems like blood magic. I haven't fleshed out the concept, but I think blood magic, or like a blood knight-esque character, is somewhere that I would like to go. Let's see, what else? There you go, Henry. So travel is not something that I really care strongly about. But it is something that, so like Lord of the Rings has a lot of mechanics related to travel. And if you've watched Lord of the Rings, you can probably understand why. I don't see that in this particular game. But there's some like loose mechanics for being like well rested. And I don't know that I like it. I think it needs to be refined. There's some mechanics for foraging, which I actually do like, because it just runs a skill check and everybody gets to contribute, and it's based on a number of successes and failures, and that feels fun. Yeah, trying to think of what else could be strong. You know, the lineage options I really like, because they're not, there's a blend of familiar and foreign. I only ever incorporated random encounters into traveling because I don't think the logistics are all that interesting, but what happened during the trip is. Yeah, I feel similarly. The like, you can walk X amount of miles in a day. Like, I don't want to put rules for that in the game. It feels like a waste of paper. Ultimately, the GM's going to figure it out. We already do that. There's like really specific rules in D&D for overland travel, just based on your pace and that sort of thing. And I don't know anybody who actually uses them, because it's not important. At least not in the games that I've played, especially since D&D is very much like heroic fantasy. If the game was more gritty, maybe it would make sense, but it just, to me, it's a mismatch. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And getting some proper tables to like flesh out hexes and just those random encounters would be something that I'd like to do as well. Not because I like the travel, but like you're saying, it's the encounters that matter. One thing that I really wanted to create, and I don't know how to do this yet. I've experimented with some concepts, and it wasn't quite hitting for me, is the ability for a GM to create an adventure start to finish, using very similar to the other systems, just using prompts to do that. But it is very easy for players to go off the rails if you don't account for a bunch of different possibilities. And I think that's where some of that idea falls down. But now that organizations are in place, maybe there's a good way to align the two to where it would make sense, because everybody's pulling for the same, toward the same goal. Yeah, or be the there's actually a really good book that came out that's all about travel, and it does it very, very well. It gives you a lot of options for very interesting places that they feel fleshed out, and it even goes into depth for like you roll. So if you come across a ruins, you also roll for like, this is a ruins in this sort of biome. Who owned the ruins before? Like, how old is this ruins? Who built it? Who occupies it now? Between those things, just like who built it, who occupies it now, how old is it? That creates, there's so much potential there. I'll have to look up what the book is. I haven't picked it up, but I want to. Okay, I think that's where we're going to call it. Thank you all for hanging out. I'm going to try to do a live stream every week. Won't necessarily be every Friday. I think that Fridays are probably a pretty big commitment. But I don't know. I haven't tried it. I just want to create some sort of consistency in the charting of this course as we navigate through whatever future Distal has for us. So thank you all again. I will catch you all later. Yes. That's it. That's all I got.